Welcome to English Total Grammar Lessons. Chapter 14, Modal Verbs. Today's lesson is going to be devoted to modal verbs, which are a very particular set of verbs. Just one quick thing. Before we start, we would like to remind you that we upload lessons and other content regularly, so consider subscribing to our channel for more videos. Okay, without further ado, let's start. Modal verbs are verbs which behave differently from other verbs. They can be used to express various meanings. Here are a few examples.
I can jump high. I could jump high when I was a kid. I think I will be able to jump when I am 50.
I have to clean up every day. I must be thorough. I should talk to my boss about vacation.
Okay then, let's have a look at the ways in which we can use modal verbs. We're going to start by looking at the verb can. This is the structure for sentences with the modal verb can. As you can see, there's the subject followed by can or can't if the sentence is negative, and the verb in infinitive form. To form a question, start with the verb can, followed by the subject, and then the verb in infinitive form. Let's talk about the use. You can use can to say that something is allowed. For instance,
You can park here.
you can use it to say that something is possible.
I can see the ocean from here.
And you can also use it to describe ability.
I can run long distances.
Modal verbs, for the most part, do not require the use of auxiliaries like do or did. Let's move on to the next one. Next is the modal verb could. Sentence structure is similar to the one we just saw. The sentence structure is, as you can expect, the subject, followed by could or couldn't, and then the verb in infinitive form. To form a question, start with the verb could, followed by the subject and then the verb, again in infinitive form. Let's see what you can use it for. You can use could as the past form of can. For instance,
I could run long distances when I was younger.
yes, time affects us all, doesn't it? You can use could as the conditional form of can, as we discussed in the previous video, to say things like this, for example.
If I had a great seat, I could hear very well.
Pretty straightforward, don't you think? Let's move on, shall we? The next modal is be able to, and the structure is as follows. You'll see it's nothing new really. First the subject, followed by be able to, and then the verb in infinitive form. In order to form a question, you start with the verb to be, followed by the subject, then the phrase able to, and finally the verb in infinitive form. Note that this is the only modal that requires the use of the verb to be. This means that you can use it in different tenses. Let's see what you can do with this modal. You can use be able to instead of can or could in present, past and future, which is not possible with can or could. Bear in mind that you need to conjugate the verb to be correctly though. Let's have a look at a couple of examples to see how it works.
I will be able to win if I train hard.
I have been able to work despite being sick.
Great, on to the next verb. Another modal verb we'll talk about is have to. This is the sentence structure. Sentences are formed by the subject, followed by have to or has to, depending on the subject of the sentence, and then the verb in infinitive form. Nothing new really. To form a negative sentence, you need the subject, followed by don't or doesn't according to the subject of the sentence, the modal have to, and then the verb in infinitive form. And, as you probably already know, to form a question, first start with the auxiliary do or does, followed by the subject, the modal have to, and finally the verb in infinitive form. Use this verb to talk about obligation or necessity. For instance,
You have to turn left here.
you can use it to talk about lack of obligation or necessity as well.
Great, we don't have to work Saturday.
So, as you can see from the examples, this is the only modal verb that requires the use of auxiliaries in present, past, and future tenses. Nothing you can't manage if you think about it. Hang in there, 2 more modal verbs to go. The next modal verb is must. You'll probably notice that the pattern repeats itself in how you form sentences. The structure, once again, is subject, followed by must or mustn't if the sentence is negative, and then the verb in infinitive form. To form a question, start with must, followed by the subject of the sentence, and yes, the verb in infinitive form. You can use must to talk about obligation. For instance,
You must sign the contract before you start.
in its negative form, you can use it to talk about prohibition. For example,
You mustn't smoke here.
finally, let's look at the modal should. This is the last one we'll talk about today. To form a sentence, start with the subject, followed by should or shouldn't if the sentence is negative, and then the verb in infinitive form. To ask a question, start with should, followed by the subject, and then the verb in infinitive. I know, I will stop saying the word infinitive. You can use should to offer advice when something is not an obligation. For instance,
We should stop smoking.
Yeah, we should.
here's another one.
You shouldn't believe everything you read in the news.
Why not?
So, that's it. Some of the most common modal verbs in English. Okay then, let's recap. In today's lesson, we have learned that modal verbs are verbs that express different modalities. You can use them to express all sorts of ideas, like possibility, permission, or ability in present. For example, or ability in the past. You can use them to describe what you can do in different tenses. To describe obligation or necessity. To describe obligation or prohibition. Or to talk about recommendation or what is advisable. Don't forget that they are always accompanied by another main verb. Great, more tools for conversation. Okay, we hope this lesson was useful. Don't forget to try the test posted in the comments section down below. Stay tuned for our next video. Thanks for watching. This is the end of chapter 14.